Okay, okay. Take your seats. Settle down. Settle down. Welcome to the Road to Concord 101. This class is about all things connected to the path of history leading from Mount Sinai to Lexington Green and the individual liberty and freedom of man. If you're in the wrong place, feel free to get up and go see the registrar's office about dropping this class, preferably before you meet the professor. In the event you do not already know this, your professor is Joe Bakanovic, and he has a bit of a reputation on campus. He is most definitely an acquired taste, but if you can learn to tolerate him, he will make you better at defending your position, whatever it may be. I'm T.A. Charlie. I'm here to help the professor, but more importantly, you. We encourage you to take notes, and if you have questions, feel free to call. If you'd like the number, please email us. You can also post your questions in the comments, and we'll get the professor's attention. Part of my job is to let you know a little bit about your professor. As I said earlier, the professor has that bit of a reputation on campus. Not all of it is good. Let me help explain a little with a story about how I came to be the professor's TA. I was invited to attend one of his classes. My first impression of the professor was that he was an egotistical, narcissistic know-it-all. My intent after only a few minutes of class was never to attend another class with this professor. But after class, Professor Joe came up to me and thanked me for my class participation and told me that my perspective was valuable, and he asked me to keep coming to class. This actually took me back a little. To me, he seemed inconsistent. What was I to do? I decided to continue coming to his classes. As I did, I actually started doing what he does encourage students to do. Check behind him and see if what he is teaching is actually correct. I have done this over and over again, and generally speaking, I found what he teaches to be backed by sound, valid, and rational arguments from reputable sources. When I have challenged him and provided a sound, valid, and rational argument in opposition to his current position, he immediately changed his position and thanked me for correcting him. Why do I tell you all this? Professor Joe is a little rough around the edges, especially in the way he delivers his content. But if you stick with him and listen to what he teaches and then go and check his sources, you will likely find, as I did, he will help you better understand the world around you and help you to think better and hopefully to live better. At least that is our hope. One last note. This class builds on itself. Therefore, it is important to attend class regularly. We will not always have time to go over previously covered material. If you are new, we suggest you watch our older classes. We've created playlists to help you with those things we feel are of special importance. Now, let's get started.
Good morning. It's Tuesday, October 14th, 2025. This is class number 551 on the road to Concord. I'm Joe Bakanovic. Not that I'm so much of a professor as one of your classmates out there kind of gave me the title, dubbed me that way. If you're new, this is not really going to be a good show for you to start with. For those of you who were expecting me to continue on our extrapolation of morality from I think, therefore I am, I moved that to Thursday. I'm just confession. I'm not in the mood. I'm not in the mood to do that. And I know that if I had self-discipline, I'd do it anyway, but no. I don't know about each of you out there, but I have no, it wasn't you, Mr. Spikes, but yeah, you helped. I have I've been experiencing an uneasy feeling for a while now. And it's like there's something wrong with the universe, the whole world, something's just not right. And I explained it a while back as though, I don't know, maybe if you're a hunter, you're in the woods and you get this tingly feeling on the back of your neck and your hair stands up, that there's something wrong. The only way I know to explain it is back in my military days. Oh, yeah. Mr. Spikes, yeah, you gave me the title professor. Yeah. My bad. I'm not thinking clearly today. But back in my military days, you'd get a sixth sense for when there was danger, real, you're about to be ambushed type of danger, like it was about to drop in the pot. So the expression goes. I've been feeling that way for a while. And it's making it difficult for me to concentrate. And I had something happen this past weekend. I had an encounter in a conversation with somebody, and it led to a series of exchanges with other people that just struck me in a way that, well, for one thing, it was a blessing, because I got to see that I have matured a little bit. Because it struck me in a way that in the past I would have just run my big mouth before I thought. This time I just shut my big mouth and sought help from others that were there who knew firsthand what had happened. And I asked them for their take, and I asked them to check the way I was feeling, the way I wanted to respond, and make sure that, I hadn't looked at it wrong, or I was I the problem here? But it got me to thinking about some things. What I encountered was a case of I don't want to say too much, because if the people were involved, and some of them listen to this show, they might already have an idea of what was going on, but I don't want to skyline anybody or point them out. But it got me to realizing just how far our society has come from the one into which I was born. And I saw a meme on Facebook, AI generated, I could tell by the picture, but it says, "This is no longer the world that I remember, the world I grew up in. And it is becoming a world that I don't think is worth saving." I agree. It's becoming something I don't see any value in saving what we're becoming. For example, what happened to Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson? Did somebody flip a switch and the two of them went bat crap crazy? And for example, I guess they're both pushing this chemtrail thing. And I know there are some of you out there that believe in chemtrails. I'm sorry, I don't. I know the physics behind it. So, Joe, you don't think they're messing with the environment? No, I didn't say that. I said it's not what you think it is. It's not chemtrails. That's just condensation. I understand how that works. I understand how airplanes work. I understand how cloud seeding works. Now, I'm not telling you that the jet traffic in our environment over the decades has not had a detrimental effect on the environment. I've told you that before. It's probably minute particles of the exhaust and pieces of different types of metal burning off of the engines, the metals they use in the engines. Yeah, I can see that, but I don't see that as intentionally putting chemicals into the atmosphere the way people are thinking. Cloud seeding looks a little different. There are pictures of cloud seeding airplanes, and it looks like they got lots of Roman candles hanging off the back of the wings. That's cloud seeding. That's the type of stuff that most people think of. That's not, this isn't Agent Orange type thing where you're spraying great big chemtrail clouds. No. So I don't understand the people who do that. 9/11. Well, it was an inside job. That was a controlled demolition. No, it wasn't. Good grief. I know people who were there, people I've known for a long time and trust. They watched the planes hit the buildings. They were there. I've heard about what happened. You've seen videos of it. Say, well, Joe, jet fuel can't melt steel. It doesn't have to melt it. Say, okay, I've got a Tootsie Roll. I'm going to hold it straight up. A hairdryer can't melt the Tootsie Roll. No, it can't. And a hairdryer set on high cannot melt a Tootsie Roll. It's not hot enough. But what do you think's going to happen if I leave that hairdryer on the same spot on my Tootsie Roll long enough? I got one of them long Tootsie Rolls. And I'm going to hold it right at the base where I'm holding it. Just one of the little pieces of the Tootsie Roll. My Tootsie Roll's got to bend. Why? Because the hairdryer can't melt the chocolate, but it can destroy its tensile strength. That's all the fuel had to do to the building. And it did that. By the way, jet fuel may not burn that hot unless you blowtorch it. Force air through it. Kind of like when you're burning inside a confined area and the wind is blowing in one area and out the other, which is exactly what it did. Whenever you throw extra oxygen into something, it causes it to burn hotter no matter what it is. Because coal does not naturally burn hot enough to forge steel, which is why they put a bellows on it. Now, why don't these good people explaining how 9/11 was an inside job ever discuss that stuff with you? Well, Joe, aluminum can't cut steel, so the plane couldn't have cut. Really? Have you ever seen these videos of the people who take decks of playing cards, just regular playing cards, and they throw them so hard that they can go through things? They cut paper, they cut vegetables, they cut sticks of wood and stuff with a playing card. They can do it. Go look it up. It's on YouTube. Go find it. Since when can a playing card, I'll take my playing card and I'll hit the carrot, and I can't cut the carrot, but these guys go cut that carrot clean in half. How? If you put enough force behind something, when it hits, especially depending on the angle, playing card is thin. So if I hit the carrot at the right angle, all of the force of the card flying hits at that one small point. It can cut the carrot. Case in point, Mythbusters. Go find the show where they proved, quote unquote, air quotes, proved that you cannot cut a person in half with a cable, a broken cable. Now, if you ever saw that Men of Honor with Cuba Gooding Jr. or whatever, the Navy sailor who lost his leg to a cable, the real man, that was a real show, that really happened. He's going to be really surprised to find out he can't lose his leg to a broken cable, because that's exactly what happened to him. The people on the aircraft carriers are going to be surprised they can't be killed by those broken cables. But apparently, these great geniuses in Mythbusters proved you can't do it. What they did is set the problem up wrong. They put the piggy right next to the cable. So when they let the tension off the cable coiled back on the pig. That's not how it works. You have to slice the pig at the end of the cable when it breaks. The very end of that cable is what cuts. That's where all the kinetic energy is. And let me tell you, it will slap right through you if it's enough tension on that cable when it breaks. We don't understand physics. Why? Because we don't want to teach physics in high school. We want to teach everybody that it's okay for Johnny to have two mommies who are both men, who think they're mommies. We can teach that in school all day long, but heaven forbid we actually teach you physics. Now, I only made a C in university physics, a B in the first one and a C in the second one. Barely passed. But my professor, he came into the very first day of class, 110 of us in there on University Physics 1, and he said, my job is to fail you. Your job is to keep me from doing my job, and went right into the lesson. 2 semesters later, 18 of us graduated. And those of us that did, we know physics. We know our physics. We learned it because he tried to fail us. He told me it was his job to make sure nobody got into engineering who wasn't capable of doing the work, because people could die because of our inability to do the work. See, he wasn't a DEI professor. Comment on the board from Genevieve Thomas. I've seen where a tomato put pine straw into a brick wall and you can't pull it out. The pine straw will break when you put on it. Yeah, a tornado rather put pine straw. Yeah. Yes, that's the point. Sorry. Yes, Miss Thomas, exactly. The point here is that those jets are flying at almost 600 miles an hour. When they hit the building, they did take out some of the outside girders on the trade towers. Those were load-bearing walls. So all they had to do now was weaken some of the center supports. And then once the weight on top bends those, and they'll start pancaking as they come down. And no, the idea, well, it was controlled demolition. It came straight down. First of all, you have to do that from the bottom, not the top. And second of all, those buildings did not come straight down. If you'll go back and find the video from different angles, you will see that both of them come down at an angle. So, and then building 7. Well, that was the FBI had to get rid of. They were hiding. No, there's an Italian engineer who went through that. He got the blueprints for that building. He showed you how they remodeled it at one point. He showed you how they moved the girders. He shows it. He did a 3D modeling. He showed you the video of the building coming down. He showed you the damage that the media never wants you to see, that the 9/11 truthers never want you to see. And he showed you exactly how it came down. And as it comes down, if you're seeing the right angle of the video, because there's multiple videos, as it comes down right before building 7 collapses, there's a kink in the roof right under the girder that had been modified at some point after the building had been built. And that's where it failed, because the support walls came down and over and around another structure. They didn't go all the way to the floor. And that put an undue stress from the girders that had been removed on the outside wall where the tower hit it when it came down. That transferred the stresses, the load stresses from the building over to that one girder that was already weak because of the way it was made, and it failed. And that's what caused the building to collapse, especially after burning all day long. The physics is right there. Why we have to go there, I don't know. Well, it was a missile that hit the Pentagon. People said so. And there are a lot of people who said it was a daggum airplane. Well, there was no evidence of the airplane. Wrong. They hide that video from you. The day it happened, there was a video from far back looking forward, and you can see a jet engine laying on the ground in the foreground of the video. I guess they knew so much about it, they doctored it early on, although there were people who told you it was a jet. There are pictures right now of the jet tail coming. There's a little hump in the ground there. The jet was so low, it was hidden behind the hump. It comes up and over it and hits the Pentagon. The physics is it's explainable. It's all explainable, but people who should know better buy into this stuff. Why? I'm just as good a conspiracy theorist as the next. You want to go after a conspiracy theory that we can actually sink our teeth into? I've already shown it to you. Flight 800, TW 800, that was shot down. And there were reports of that early on before they covered that up. That plane was shot down. We know it. They found the solid rocket motor fuel residue on the centerline tank, and they reported it that way on the news. I remember it being on the news, on the radio at any rate, back at that time. I also know that they covered up the autopsies of the bodies because it showed shrapnel damage in the bodies of that plane was shot down. Oklahoma building, that was probably a government job. You want to talk about conspiracies? Let's talk about January 6th. That was not an insurrection. That was a false flag orchestrated by the United States government. These we have proof of. We got things we can sink our teeth into. We can independently verify them. This idea of 9/11 in the chemtrail, you can't prove any of that because it's not true. But people, there's no consistency in the way people think anymore. There's no coherent worldview in anybody. There's no common sense. Why is it so few people have a consistent, coherent worldview? There's no understanding. There's no idea of reason. Again, we're going to teach you all this woke crap in school, but I'm not going to teach you reasoning and critical thinking. I'm not going to teach you how to evaluate things in the news so that you can parse the truth. No matter what we do, we all report things with a bias. That's human nature. But nobody ever teaches our children to the tools that they need to determine truth from falsehood from themselves. Of course, we're not going to teach children that because then they're not as easy to rule over. Humanity, humanity, but especially in the United States, we're losing our sense of law and order. There's no sense of righteousness anymore in our society. There's no shame and honor. There's no allegiance to, there's no love for capital T truth. And what really pains me is there's no love for the capital T truth, even amongst those who call themselves believers. You know, the Messiah is truth, capital T truth. And if you profess him before men, he'll profess you before the Father. But if you deny him before men, he'll deny you before the Father. If you deny objective truth, then you're denying the Messiah before men. Example, I ran into a gentleman who claims to have been a missionary, a Christian missionary. And he's all in favor of illegal aliens. And he's anti-ICE. And he's a Christian. He's a believer. And he's quoting the scriptures, the Old Testament. It says, do not mistreat the foreigner living amongst you. And that's proof that Trump and the conservatives are going against the Bible. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. And I went and I responded to him. I said, well, if you're going to do that, go ahead, back a little further and quote the scriptures where it says there will be one law for all of you, for native born and foreigner living amongst you. And our law says if you come here illegally, you go back home. And it's not mistreating you to round you up and send you back home. And if you won't go willingly, it is not mistreating you to do it by force, because you are not keeping to the law. The fact that you're here illegally proves that. So this quote unquote Christian is abusing the law. Now, I don't believe he's a Christian. Calls himself that, but his fruit says he's not. Now, what about these churches that, oh, they're Christians and they got female pastors and they're teaching wokeism and the rainbow jihadism, and they're defending the illegal aliens and lawlessness? You can call yourself a Christian, but you're not according to the Messiah. So you're in favor of the Constitution. You're going to keep the Constitution. So why are you a quote unquote sanctuary city mayor? Or why are you a governor that allows a sanctuary city mayor in your country? Because both of those are illegal. There's no such thing as allowing, there's no sanctuary city. That's not allowed. That's verboten under the Constitution, which in this case supersedes the state government and its constitution, the state constitution. Your oath of office, violations. So where's your allegiance to the Constitution? Well, we got to have all these welfare programs for these. No, that's against the Constitution too. We got to have reparations. That's against the Constitution. That's lawlessness. How is it against the Constitution, Joe? You shall not hold one person guilty for the crimes of their father or of another. So if you're going to make the people today pay reparations to somebody with dark skin because of quote unquote slavery and what was done 200 and something years ago, you're going to give a reward to somebody who was not harmed and cannot show tangible harm, and you're going to force somebody else to pay it who did not do the harm. Say, well, the Germans had to repay the Jews for the Holocaust. Yes, in their lifetime. So the government that did that harm paid back the families that were harmed. That's lawful. Things like that, where the person who did the harming pays back the ones who were harmed, that's lawful. But forcing others to pay for something they did not do, that's lawlessness. And a good portion of our country thinks this is a good thing. They think it's moral. When did that happen? When did Isaiah 5:20-21 become reality? You know, woe to those who call good evil and evil good, bittersweet and sweet bitter, who think they're smart in their own eyes. When did that happen? When did the church start? Well, I know, two horns like a lambkin, but speaks with the voice of the dragon, the devil. Everybody wants to know, how do we save this country? Two questions for you. Is it worth saving anymore? Serious question. It's not rhetorical. Before you send people into combat, you make sure that the mission is just. Otherwise, don't go. I thought we learned that lesson in Vietnam. I don't know that the nation that we have now is worth saving. Now, let's say it is, or at least part of it is. Then are you going to do the job or not? Because if you're not going to do the job, you still don't need to fight for it. I thought that was a lesson we learned in Vietnam. You cannot save anything that's blue. It's lost. It's gone. By blue, I don't mean Democrat. I mean depraved. The ideology of the left is an ideology of tyranny and covetousness. It is not an ideology of service to other human beings. It's not an ideology of law and order. The blue, the for lack of a better term, all forms of secular humanism and tyranny, in whatever form you want to call it, you cannot save it. It can't be saved, not by human hands. It's depraved. Deltra says there's parts of the United States worth saving. Yes, I'll agree with that, parts. But now you're going to have to, if you want to save those parts, you're going to have to act in a way that actually achieves the goal. You cannot save the parts that are worth saving if you're trying to save the blue as well. You cannot save depraved people. It's not possible. Not by human hands. And that's part of the problem. They're depraved and have become depraved because they have believed an absurdity that humanity can remake itself. That's absurd. And that's why they commit atrocities. They believe that a man can become a woman. That's an absurdity. And that's why you commit atrocities. They believe they can make all people equal by equalizing outcome. That's an absurdity. And that's why they commit atrocities. A contradiction is an absurdity. That's why in logic we say from a contradiction all things follow. In other words, once you accept the contradiction, absurdity follows. Which, in the world of logic, if you have a nation who is embracing absurdities as truth, you have a nation of madmen, capital M, mad humans, mad Homo sapiens as a species. I don't know what to do with that. I really don't. We'll go to the break here in a few minutes, but you know this is a Christian worldview show. And if you don't, you do now. NASB Bible, Matthew 24:12. And because lawlessness increases or increased, most people's love will become cold. So the more we detach from objective reality and truth, the more we detach from law and order, because your truth is not my truth and my understanding of the law is not your understanding of the law. So blah, 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 blah. The more you detach from that, the more and more you become a libertarian. A God unto yourself, a kingdom unto yourself, a world unto yourself, the man of lawlessness, capital M again, 2 Thessalonians 2. And as that happens, those people worth saving, their love for other people will grow cold. Why? Simple. The more I see that people don't give a rat's rip, the less I care about the people who don't give a rat's rip. Excuse the language, but I don't know any other way to state this anymore. It's not that they're wrong, it's that I'm wrong. Jeremiah can do it. Why can't I? Because Jeremiah was a better man than I am. Far better. But that's what's happening right before our eyes. Biblical truth. And by the way, that's a prophecy for the latter days. Society's falling apart because lawlessness is increasing. In the second half of this show, I'm going to show it to you. I'm going to show you it's by design. Human hands, yes, but there's got to be a spiritual aspect to it. There has to be. So I've got that. And then it leads me to this one. I've told you this before. 2 Peter chapter 2, starting in verse 11. It says, where angels are greater in might and power, they do not bring a reviling judgment against them before the Lord. In other words, if angels will not judge and curse the fallen angels, if they know enough to, if angels greater in power, if they will remain lawful in the sight of lawlessness, what's that mean to us? How's that supposed to be an example? And he says, but these, now he's talking about humans, like unreasoning animals, born as creatures of instinct to be captured and killed, reviling where they have no knowledge, will in the destruction of those creatures also be destroyed. Suffering wrong as wages of doing wrong. They count it a pleasure to revel in daytime. They are stains and blemishes, reveling in their deceptions as they carouse with you, having eyes full of adultery that never cease from sin, enticing unstable souls, having a heart trained in greed and accursed children, forsaking the right way. They have gone astray, having followed the way of Balaam, the son of Beor, who loved the wages of unrighteousness. What's he talking about here? Why does that apply to politics today? He's talking about human beings who are going to be, and he's comparing them to animals who just follow their instincts and are nothing good for nothing but to be led to this slaughter. And how these people will be destroyed like those senseless animals because they've become animals. They've been handed over to their own depravity, like Paul says in the book of Romans. And they become lawless. They become a law unto themselves. They think that they're their own gods. So they think it's okay for them to demand through force of law that you recognize and adhere to their own insanity. And therefore, if you don't use their pronouns and refer to them by whatever sex they think they are, or gender, as they call it, they have a right to put you in jail. If you say something that offends them, that's hate speech. You got to go to jail. Because the inmates are quite literally running the asylum. That's worth saving? That part, no. But now here's the question before we go to the break. How does the lawful part of society do what is necessary to save itself without becoming lawless? The only way we're saving any part of this nation is to purge ourselves from this evil. Purge the evil from amongst us. How are you going to do that without becoming them? We'll see you in 3 minutes. All right, welcome back. All right, so we all know that. Hopefully, we've all heard to some extent or another, somebody saying that once liberty is lost, it's never regained by the generation that lost it, or seldom regained, or never regained. Whatever. There's a series of quotes like this, and it's true. The generation that loses their liberty will never regain it. Why? See, I'm one of these ones that it's not enough to know the truth. I need to know, why is it true? Well, that's easy. Why is liberty lost amongst a free and self-governing people? What causes liberty to be lost? The people lose their virtue. Liberty is lost because people lose their virtue. And part of virtue is the willingness to do the right thing, whether you like it or not. Part of virtue, morality. They lose their moral code. Part of that is also the willingness to pay the price for maintaining your virtue, up to and including your life. There are certain things that are worse than death. A virtuous person understands this. And the founding fathers, other people have said this too. It goes all the way back to gosh knows when. But the founding fathers told us that a person who loses their virtue, it's nearly impossible for them to regain it. What does it mean to lose your virtue? It means to become depraved. To become depraved, like an animal acting by nothing but instinct. That's how the scriptures put it. And where do you think the founding fathers got these ideas from? This is Romans 1 and 2, folks. And that's why I don't think this country can be saved. And I'm going to show you something here now, this next half hour. And it's not going to make you MAGA types very happy with me. And you know what? I don't care. I told Charlie this could be one of those shows where everybody gets to watch me end my broadcasting career live on air. I don't care anymore. I only look for capital T truth. That's my allegiance is to that. As best I understand it. The issue here is not a Republican-Democrat issue. It's not a left-right issue. This is lawful versus lawlessness. This is righteousness versus evil. Good and bad, if you want to put it that way. And yes, this is a case of I don't care about the political parties. This is a case where you've got to be on one team or the other. There's no neutral team. This isn't Dungeons and Dragons. There's no lawful neutral. That doesn't exist. You're either on team lawful or team lawless. And we're talking lawful. You got to belong to something that aligns with the natural law of this universe. That's what we're working on, what we were supposed to do today. We'll get back to it Thursday. But I've pulled a series of stories from Gateway Pundit. I just need the titles to point out what I'm going to do today. But for the most part, Gateway Pundit, yes, right-wing news source. But for the most part, they go through it and they put an explanation to their stories that at least corresponds to the title. So I don't have to read them. This one here just says, New York City mayor candidate Zoran Kwame or whatever, the Muslim, loves crime. No, he doesn't love crime. He loves lawlessness. Lawlessness creates chaos. Chaos creates him a crisis, an opportunity to do what he wants to do. He's doing this for a purpose. He wants to do away with the police. He wants to do away with putting people in jail. And it serves a purpose. It's a purpose. This is evil. He wants to push lawlessness, chaos. He wants the chaos so that he can provide you with the solution and speak his world into existence. He wants to prove he's a god. By ancient Mesopotamian terms, that's what he's trying to do. So, well, this isn't ancient Mesopotamia. No, but the spirit world remains constant. It has not changed. So the spirits behind these people, Joe, spirits, you're crazy. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. You're not going to be able to explain any of this any other way. Psychiatry, psychology, sociology, none of that. Politics, none of that. Poli-sci, none of that explains this. None of it. None of it. Because human nature says that he shouldn't be chasing the exact same goal using the exact same methods that people have been chasing since time immemorial. Man cannot do that. And yet, that's what we're seeing here. That's something outside of our time and space, the timelines of this universe. This is something that exists longer than man does and has a control and influence over man. But what this individual, this Muslim, wants is chaos. The next story, 93% of Virginian Democrats approve of their candidates calling for murder of Republicans and children dying in their mother's arms. That guy came out, said he wants to kill Republican candidates and he wants children to die in their mother's arms. 93% of the people going to vote for him approve of that. They're depraved. They're depraved. They're mad. They're lawless. They have no shame. How is it that that party is even allowed in our country? I don't mean by law. I mean you and I. How is it that 93% still has any friends left? It's because you and I have been conditioned not to hold anybody accountable, to just sit down and shut up. I'm sorry, I was made to tell the emperor he has no clothes, even if it cost me my life. I have no problem telling that 93% they are absolutely insane, evil, wicked, lawless. You don't kill a political opponent because you disagree with their policies and their agenda. That's what our system of government is supposed to be about. And you don't get to tell me that I can silence you and jail you and imprison you and then turn around and tell me, yeah, but you owe me for reparations of slavery. You're pushing slavery right now because it's supposed to be an evil, and yet you want reparations for the very thing you're in the process of doing. Instead of skin color, you're basing it on political opinion. You're wicked. You're evil. I don't know why anybody's friends with you. If I was married to somebody who actually approved of the murder of their political opponents and children in their mother's arms, I'd be divorced. Because I'm going to go after capital T truth before I go after my personal feelings. Next story I pulled. More lies. Jimmy Kimmel claims there's no such thing as Antifa 2 weeks after claiming MAGA killed Charlie Kirk. Why is that man allowed on TV? Because the broadcasting company that employs him and all of those subsidiaries that broadcast his show under license, they're all mad. Their leadership is depraved. The audience is mad. It's depraved. Evil. Evil. Excuse me. I'm having a hard time with my voice here. It's goldenrod season. Not good for me. Next story. Assassination porn. Salt Lake Tribune newspaper incites violence against Utah Republican lawmakers 1 month after Charlie Kirk's murder with a shocking hole in the head cartoon. The press. Well, it's freedom of the press, Joe. That is not covered under freedom of the press. That's illegal. That violates the laws of this country. And people are defending this. The people who defend this, the people who draw it, write it, the people who publish it, if you have anything to do with putting it out there and supporting it and defending it, you are evil. Period. You're wicked. There is no light in you. I have no problem saying that. I'm not judging your eternal salvation. I'm judging the fruit. I'm judging you for what you're doing and what you're saying. I'm commanded to do that. This is wicked. Next story. The Biden FBI placed 274 agents into the crowd on January 6th. Trump slams January 6th scam as Marjorie Taylor Greene highlights Antifa presence in the crowd and calls out FBI. This was known since the day it happened. Why is it just now getting published? Joe, yes, it was. Do any of you remember the video clips from the crowd screaming, "Agent, Fed, agent"? The people had identified them. The people in that crowd knew that they were not part of the MAGA crowd. And they were putting it out there on the internet, telling everybody that these folks were government actors. That crowd was incited. We have video of the police shooting at the crowd when the crowd is doing nothing. They're shooting rubber bullets and they're throwing tear gas at them. The crowd was not doing anything until that happened. The police started that riot. And then the agents led the storming of the building, only in that one area for the benefit of the cameras so that they could slam down on the right to protect what was a stolen election. Lawlessness. All lawlessness. Watch. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson declares rebellion against feds, vows to lead a resistance against federal authorities. His governor has also come out there and said he's going to protect his people, meaning the illegals. The illegals are his people now, I guess, not the American citizens. Folks, that right there is an insurrection. That's a real insurrection. But we can't do anything about that now because of January 6th. January 6th gives him political cover. He can do what he wants now because now if Trump arrests him, enforces the law, then even MAGA is going to be, well, Trump, you're going too far. See, you are becoming a king. We've been caught up in the fruit, the reward, this is what happens when you practice lawlessness or when you allow lawlessness to continue in your midst. Then we have this one. Chuck Schumer calls for forceful uprising in response to Letitia James' indictment. He is a prominent member of the federal government calling for force to oppose a duly elected government. That is the constitutional definition of treason. This man should be tried and executed for treason. Yes, after a trial, if you get a conviction, he should be executed. That's treason. Are we going to do it? No. Not going to do a dang thing to him. Why? Because you're afraid of the backlash and you're not willing to pay the price to enforce the law. You're just going to, poor Trump, he can't do anything. Yeah, I know. It's not his fault. Soros-funded violent leftist operation networks exposed. We've known this for a long time. Glenn Beck exposed this. People have written books about this. This is sedition. This is subversion. This is an attack on the American people by people with American citizenship from within the United States. This is illegal. This is not a law enforcement problem. This is a military problem. If you're going to treat this as a RICO problem, you're going to go after it with law, you're never going to get rid of it. This has to be purged militarily. Because it isn't a military attack. It's asymmetrical warfare. We're not going to honor the threat because we don't want to pay the price. Foreign billionaires funneled $513 million to radical Antifa groups operating here inside the United States. You know what that makes this? That makes this an international attack on the United States. Like I said, we're in a war. You won't call it that because you don't want to pay the price, because you don't want to face the ramifications. I'm talking to this class as well. Not just the people you think are them. I'm talking to you as well. I'm ready to face it. Nobody would follow me. Otherwise, I'd lead it. Because first thing I'd do is say, hey, DeSantis, we either need to secede or I'm going to have to lead a movement to declare a different government in this state, or at least a part of it, so I could establish a duly elected government to do something about this crap. He wouldn't do that. He's a Republican. He's part of the problem. Tom Homan breaks down the Democrat endgame on illegal immigration. Just guess. It's about replacement theory, only it's not a theory. Holman says these all are here so that they could eventually give them amnesty, turn them into Democratic voters while giving them more and more money to keep voting Democrat, just like they did with the welfare system, just like they did with Social Security. That's what all of those programs are designed for, to give them a uniparty where they never have to worry about losing an election again. So eventually they can turn it over and run a dictatorship, the revolution of the proletariat. They're communists. Watch. AG Pam Bondi, FBI Director Kash Patel, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem vow to take down terrorist groups. Antifa, they are an organized, systemic, international criminal enterprise. No. They are a foreign government, foreign domestic government, waging a war on the United States. This right here gives them cover. So as long as Bondi and Kash Patel and Kristi Noem are going to treat them as though they're a criminal enterprise, they're going to continue to succeed. And we will continue to be destroyed. Because you're going after a military operation with law enforcement. You are fighting a fire with a squirt gun that has no water. Why? Because you're afraid to do what you should do. Well, Trump's doing that, Joe. Do something! President Trump once again calls out Pam Bondi to take action after news breaks of 274 FBI agents on January 6th Fedsurrection. Do something, Bondi! Bondi works for you, Trump! Fire her ass! Excuse me. I didn't mean to do that. Fire her!
I don't have a dump button.
Yeah, I know. Fire her and put Matt Gaetz in there. There's a reason y'all got rid of him. He might actually do something, which you don't want to happen. So this is on you, Trump, because you're just considering invoking the Insurrection Act against lawless governors and mayors. Hey, Donnie, you got a constitutional duty to invoke the Insurrection Act here in this case, because this is a textbook definitional constitutional. This is an insurrection. So why won't you do anything? I'm afraid of the ramifications. Then get out of the way and let somebody who isn't do the job. Oh, that's right. The American people won't elect that person. Parties won't allow them to exist. We don't want that. Even if you succeed in getting rid of the Democratic Party, you still have the Republicans. They're the same party. They're a uniparty. No, they aren't, Joe. Yes, they are. How many times have I proven this? See, that's part of the problem. I can prove it over and over and over again, and you're not going to believe it unless you want to. You know what that tells me when people do that? You have no allegiance to the truth. You have allegiance to self. I'll believe it if I want to believe it, if it makes me feel all good, warm, and cozy. A lot of people, that's just your opinion, Joe. You know where my opinion came from? My opinions came from looking at the world and trying to find a way to explain it in a consistent and coherent manner. I looked at a lot of things for a long time. I looked at the Founding Fathers. I looked at Ayn Rand. I looked at reason and rationalism. I looked at psychiatry, psychology, and science. It wasn't until I embraced the scriptures that it all made sense. And it wasn't until I embraced the scriptures on their original ancient Near East Mesopotamian worldview that it all made sense. Once I did that, I was like, oh, crap. I could even start predicting things now. And for the most part, I have been. And if you have been following me for any length of time, you've seen me do it. One of the best known examples to some of you on this class was the time I ran into a character named Richard Marx on the radio when I was with Steve Nichols' show. I told Steve exactly what Richard was going to come on and say after I got off that segment. And that's exactly what he did. Richard was even listening, and he still did exactly what I said he was going to do. How could I do that? It had nothing to do with Richard Marx. I had just met him. But I knew the spirit. I knew the spirit behind the man. And I knew that the spirit is a one-note Simba. It doesn't know how to do anything else but. And he did exactly what I expected him to do. That's how I was able to predict it. And it works. It has worked for me every single time I've relied on it. That's why I cling to it. That's where my opinions come from. My opinions aren't driven by my desires. My opinions are driven by the fact that this is what I've tested and found to be true according to the compass that I've chosen. And then I got to get in line. And I run into people all the time who tell me that they're the same way, and they're not. They're not. They want everything to get in line with them. They won't bend their knee to anything. They're lawless. They just don't realize it. You can't get them to see it. I'll be honest with you. That's the biggest reason I don't know why I do this show. Don't worry, I'm not going anywhere. Don't take this the wrong way. I'm doing this because I know that I'm supposed to. Well, not this part, but we who are lost. But I'll be honest with you, I get a better response from the audience on the Road to Concord than I do from we who are lost. Most of the people who listen to our scripture show, I honestly, when I run into a lot of them, not all of them. Now, if you are not the one I'm talking to here, I'm expecting you to have enough spiritual discernment to know you're not the one I'm talking to. But the bulk of them, I teach a lesson that's aimed right at them. I'm thinking of one particular person, and they're not in this audience. I teach a lesson aimed right between their eyes, and they turn around and apply it to everybody but themselves. Why do I waste my time with that person? I know I'm right. I can pull it right out of scripture, verbatim, word for word, and it applies. But they don't get it. They don't see it. They don't even think that they have to test it against themselves to see if it does apply to them. If for nothing else, the reason we need a savior is because the human animal is by its own nature totally depraved and mad. And unless you are born from above, seeking capital T truth, it's all we're ever going to be as an animal. You have to at least, at the very least, you have to chase after natural law. The way Locke sees it, not Hobbes. Tomorrow, I'm going to start on what I now realize is probably going to be the most important series I've taught, scripture series, to date, to this point in my life. I found something in my studies. We're going to be ultimately talking about the new covenant. But we've got to go back to foundation blocks. And Charlie likes to tell you, Lombardi would start every training session every year with, gentlemen, this is a football. I'm going to go back to, ladies and gentlemen, this is leather and this is lace. And we're going to make a football. And I am going to talk very simple, stupid, not meaning to be condescending to anybody, but I am talking to myself tomorrow. Right back to the very basics. And I'm going to work my way forward because I found the key to finally understanding the difference between the Old and New Testament and what it means to be under grace as opposed to the law. It's been right there the whole time. I had everything I needed. I had forgotten to apply the principles that I preach. And in getting ready for this series, I found it again, written by other hands, and it smacked me right between the eyes like a 6x6. And I'm like, I got it. It was one of the last pieces that have been missing for me. I believe I think that if anybody is sincerely seeking to understand the covenant under which we live now, the new covenant, I can explain it to you. Not the part you need to know to just accept on faith and get saved. No. That's easy. But I can explain the who, what, where, how, and why behind it now. The reasoning. The Father's reasoning. I'm going to start that tomorrow. Very, very, very simple, and move forward. And I don't care how long it takes me. I'm going to stick with this. And I might even put this in a book form at some point so that if there's enough time left in the world, this will survive past my lifetime. Because in finding the key to the new covenant, I found the ultimate fulfillment in explaining the gospel message. The true gospel. Not the one the church thinks it is, but the one the Messiah said it was. That starts tomorrow. Thursday, we'll go back to teaching universal morality derived from nothing more than I think, therefore I am. Friday, we've got 3 chapters to cover in our book. That's already up in your homework. Go to wewhoarelost.com, left-hand margin, scroll down, find the homework button, click on it. That'll tell you what to do. For the rest of you, I thank you for being here. I know that we've lost a good part of our audience lately. Good. I'm happy with that. I am. I'm becoming a Gideon more and more, trying to get away from being Jonah, trying to become a Gideon. Remember, he starts with 30,000. Yahweh whittles it down to 300. Wish I'd have named the show Gideon's 300, but we'll get there. I thank the few of you that stick with me very much. I hope that I and Charlie and Natasha serve you some way tangible, some way that affects your life in a positive manner, that helps you, some way that helps you find comfort by developing a better understanding of your world, finding an anchor, firm ground upon which to stand, bedrock, so that you can withstand the storms of this life. That's all I want to do. I don't want to tell you what you have to think. It's not me. I just want to help you learn how to think. That's part of natural law. There's one way to do that. I don't care how you use it. That's up to you. You have to work out your own salvation. I just want to help. I want to serve my fellow man in a way that actually makes a difference. And if I do that for 5 people or if I do that for 5 million, I don't care. It's not the number. It's how many can I actually help, really, truly help. And I'm coming to understand that doing this show is as much to help you and serve you as it is to teach me. I'm starting to see what he's doing with it for me. And it hurts. It's growing pains. But it's the type of pain I can lean into. It's not physical pain like, pushing an extra 50 pounds on the weights. This is the emotional and mental pain that I was built to handle. I hate it, but this I can handle. I absolutely despise working out. I mean, look at me. It shows. But I just want to let you know that I'm aware that if you ever think I'm yelling at you, I'm yelling at the idiot that looks back at me on this screen, not you. I see myself. I see what you see at the monitor. That's the moron I'm dealing with. I got enough trouble with him. I got no business messing with you. That's for you to deal with. I just hope you have an easier time than I do. And with that, unless Charlie's got anything. Yay, nay. He didn't pop in, so I'm assuming he doesn't. We will sign off, and we will see those of you who join us tomorrow. Yeah. Otherwise, Thursday. Thursday will be a good day. So long.